Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Iblis Manifestations podcast. This channel features lengthy off-limits conversations with various different artists and entrepreneurs, predominantly from the underground metal scene. We take deep dives into the topics of life, music, spirituality, and take insight from a variety of thought-provoking perspectives from personalities who you don't often hear from in a mainstream settings. I am your host, Cheyenne, and I was originally born and raised in Iran and currently reside in the UK. I am the frontman and founding member of the black death metal band Trivex, who have been active since 2009. The band originally started in the Islamic Republic of Iran, where such type of music is banned as well as a punishable offense. You can check the band's pages for any updates on tour dates as well as new music. I am also a personal trainer and an online fitness coach who specializes in people achieving the best versions of themselves physically and mentally. Having been someone who was once extremely out of shape and overweight, I find it to be my duty to be able to pass on the information and knowledge which I've gained to help others achieve the same transformation. The Iblis Manifestations podcast also features a variety of solo episodes where I discuss personal experiences and anecdotes in a very candid fashion, covering everything from mental health, spirituality, philosophy, and even paranormal experiences. This is the Iblis Manifestations podcast. To support it, be sure to subscribe to the channel and visit the link in the descriptions.
It's great talking to you, Cheyenne, really. And best of luck to your endeavors with this podcast. I think it's a great initiative.
You're my favorite person to talk to for interviews and stuff. So I love what you're espousing out here. I love the knowledge and the perspectives that you're curating through this, and I'm just so honored to be a part of it. Thank you.
As I told you, it was one of the most interesting interviews I've ever had, because we talk a lot more things than just music, and I really appreciated that.
I respect you deeply, and it's an honor to be here.
And friends, remember as always, better to die on your feet than to live on your knees. Enjoy the podcast. Hello and welcome, everyone. It's a pleasure to be back with you again for a solo episode. This one's quite interesting. I was not planning on making this episode. However, earlier today on my Instagram, those of you who've followed me, I made a post saying that, basically saying that how much of the things that we buy from supermarkets are garbage. I was actually referencing to another post from a page, and then at the bottom of the story, for whatever reason, intuitively, I didn't even mean for it to become a big deal or anything. I just asked, is this something that you guys would like me to speak about on an episode of the podcast? And the response that I had was quite overwhelming. Within the first hour, the sheer number of people that were coming through saying that, oh yeah, we really want to hear you talk about this. Some of them were saying they were already on a journey. Some of them were saying they were trying to cut out some processed crap and things like that. And yeah, so you know what? I thought I'd dedicate some time today to come and just try and dissect my thoughts on the matter as best as possible, albeit with somewhat little preparation. This is actually a topic that I deal with on a day-to-day basis, whether it's my own personal life or whether it's my clients, and of course with everything that I do related to fitness. This is a topic that's actually very close to home. I've made a series of notes of things that I'd like to talk to you guys about, and these are merely bullet points. I don't need to read off of a script or anything because, like I said, it's a topic that I've had to deal with for a very long time. I think the most important part of the context of this is, for those of you who might not be aware, I used to be someone who used to be quite obese. I used to be around 120 kilos, and then I lost quite a bit of weight, and I did so by, of course, learning how to exercise, but perhaps slightly more importantly than that, by learning how food and nutrition actually work and getting an understanding of that. And of course, now it's within my field to basically give the relevant advice to other people to make the similar sort of shifts and changes within their own life. But I should also clarify that what I'm going to share with you in this particular episode isn't necessarily a part of any of my programs and what I offer to my clients with Trial by Fire. This one is mainly just intended to share some anecdotal experiences as well as just a few general opinions about things that perhaps some of you might not be aware. And I think that food, unfortunately, I've titled this episode "You Are What You Eat," and for a good reason. And perhaps I will create a part 2 of this at some point, just to say that, just to point to the fact that obviously that's not just exclusive to the food that you eat. It's also where you get your information from. It's the kind of shows that you choose to watch. It's the kind of music you choose to listen to. And of course, the people who tune into this podcast listen to the best fucking music there is. No question about that. But I could perhaps make a part 2 on that. We can talk more about the metaphorical things. This particular episode, my focus at this moment in time is to specifically talk about things that we actually literally eat and drink on a day-to-day basis. All right. Now, I have also already covered the topics of alcohol and why that's something that I abstain from nowadays and have done for 2 years now, actually. And again, that's a different topic of its own. If you haven't listened to that, if that's interesting to you, you're more than welcome to go check out that episode. I believe it's episode number 82. It's called Why I Am Sober. This one, we're going to talk mainly about food. Okay? So again, as always, I very much appreciate you guys tuning in. I'm going to try and cover this from as nuanced of a perspective as I can. So I guess the main sort of ignition of actually wanting to talk about this, which is something that's been bothering the fuck out of me for a very long time, came from the post that I mentioned earlier on Instagram, where someone had taken a picture of I think it was like the sweet aisle in a supermarket. And we can start right there. When you go to a supermarket, and this honestly can be any part of the world, this is not exclusive to where I live in the UK, it's not exclusive to the States or Scandinavia, Europe, whatever. This is pretty much the case everywhere you go, all right? Which, by the way, is very fucked up, but anyway. I would probably make a guesstimate that up to maybe 90-95% of what you can actually buy in that store, which is ingestible, isn't actually real food. Now, what do I mean by that? You think of how many things we've come up with and we've made in a supermarket in the format of the items being ultra-processed. There's not really a single ingredient that's grown from the earth. You think about us as humans, we've basically evolved eating and nurturing ourselves directly through what's grown from the earth, from the soil. Okay, that soil part is, by the way, very important. I will get to that. But that's how we've nurtured ourselves for millennia, whether it's through animals, through when it's through the hunter-gatherer side of our DNA and our history and our past, or whether it's the farmers or whatever. We've always had a very good symbiotic relationship with the earth until perhaps maybe 100 or so years ago. And we've always sustained ourselves that way. We've always been a lot healthier, at least metabolically speaking. We've never had the degree of disease that we do today, and the amount of comorbidities that we have that are actually caused directly because of the food and the things that we ingest in today's modern society. And I say food with quotation marks around it, because really it's not even food. These are just products that we've made. And I guess one of the most common ones that we can at least sort of start off by is just the sweets and chocolates that you can get from a supermarket. You look at an aisle and you've got all these very colorful bags of, excuse me, bullshit that are sat there on the shelves. You pick them up and you look at the labels, and there's a million number of ingredients on there. And for the record, most people don't know what many of those chemicals are. I don't know what most of those chemicals are. I'm familiar with some of them that I always look out for, but generally speaking, you don't know what the fuck is in there. And it's basically something that we've made to hack into our brains, to use our survival instinct, which is built into our DNA, to use that against us because it gives us a temporary pleasure. And instead, what do? We pay for it. Okay? So it's basically a product that's made out of nothingness. It's not really food. It's not giving you any nutritional value whatsoever. In fact, some of them are have such lack of nutritional density that they have a higher chance of actually draining the nutrients in your body. That's another thing to keep an eye out for. And yeah, the more and more we've stayed away from the whole food sources, things that, like I said earlier, they grow out of the earth. They've got lots of different nutrients. They contain all of the different minerals and the valuables of the soil, which you then translate through us. And then we basically defecate, and then there's like a cycle there. What we've come and done is, even though I'm not someone who's anti-capitalist, this is one area where we really went wrong. Is that we've created products so that we can profit from, and in exchange, you basically just get a temporary pleasure. Let's say, for example, a bag of sweets. That there's a temporary pleasure to that, and of course, what's crazy about it is how addictive they are as well. That is that once you open a bag, you start going through that. In no time, you will finish the whole thing. And part of the reason why, other than, of course, all of the additives and all the different chemicals that are in there, is just a simple reaction that our body has to sugar. Now, I want to make this clear from the get-go. I'm not one of those sugar is all evil kind of people. That's not my stance here, all right? In fact, having sugar in combination with an active lifestyle, especially if you're doing a lot of resistance training, I don't think there's any problem with that whatsoever, particularly if that sugar is sourced from, again, natural sources. Could be, blueberries or any kind of fruits. These are all things that have somewhat higher levels of sugar. That's normally where you will find them in nature, or honey, raw honey, let's say, for example, because again, a lot of honey that you buy from supermarket is just sugar water. Basically, it's syrup and water mixed in together, has very, very, very little amounts of actual honey in there. Fun fact there for you. And our bodies, from a DNA perspective and an evolutionary perspective, have a very strong reaction to sugar. And part of that is because in the survival sense, when you come across that, our survival would have depended on it. Why? Because it's food, okay? So what happens is that when you do ingest sugar, your gut system actually sends a signal to your brain. It sends dopamine to your brain saying, you see that? You need more of that, okay? Why? Because in a survival setting where you're starving, where you're hunting, that's the thing that you need the most, right? You need that to survive. You need that to thrive. So now what's happened is that in the modern context where everything is so accessible to us, you've got these motherfucking companies that have been making these bullshit sugary products like sweets, like pastilles, or the milk chocolates and things like that you can buy that are absolutely filled with sugar and all kinds of other additives, which then what happens is that our body has an addictive response to that. In fact, I believe that I read somewhere, and the conclusion of this was that sugar can cause addiction that can be a very similar level to that of cocaine, purely just because of the dopamine response that you can get from it. And there's a reason why you've always got a second stomach, like let's say if you've been eating dinner somewhere and then you're completely full, but then as soon as someone says the word dessert, you're like, all right, then let's go. You can start again, and you can smash through a chocolate cake and it can feel like nothing sometimes. It's like, it's as if you have a second stomach for it. It's quite interesting, actually, and we all experience this. And that's part of the reason why, is because of the reaction that our bodies have to sugar. And again, I'm not here to alienate sugar, but it's very important for you to understand where it's used in the foods that you buy and how much of it is used in the foods that you buy. And sometimes you got to think to yourself, is that really necessary? Do I really need to have 40 grams of sugar in a bottle of protein shake that's only going to give me, 20 grams of protein? Things that you really should start perhaps paying attention to, because these all have a cumulative effect on not just our physical health, but our mental health as well. Okay? So, bringing this back to the supermarket debacle, when you really realize what's really food and what's really going to nurture us, what really comes from the soil, what comes from a natural setting, you'll soon realize that there's actually very little of what's there that's close to food. Now, even you could make the example that something like ice cream. Back in the day, ice cream used to be just a combination of raw milk and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, even eggs and just cream, or, and then just a cone, and then that was it. Nowadays, I think you can't really get away with buying ice cream unless it has at least 20 different ingredients in it. In those, including seed oils, which I'm going to get to later in this episode, of course. And I think that's a very tragic, very, very tragic thing, because we have all these different illnesses and different ailments that pop up in society, in people that we know, in ourselves, in people that we love. And these things are all skyrocketing everywhere, and we're kind of just stood there scratching our heads. And people might turn around and say that, okay, yeah, that's because in the last 20 years, more jobs have become sedentary. And yes, while that may be true, I think what's also extremely relevant is the fact that our quality of the food has gone in the absolute fucking gutter, because the food that we get isn't really real anymore. And that clearly has had a negative impact on us. Like you have people who think it's good to drink 4 bottles of Diet Coke because, it says Diet Coke, so it must be good, right? And instead getting all kinds of gut disruptions as a result of that. And your body's insulin still will respond to those sweeteners in there, by the way, despite the lack of calories that it might have on the bottle. And it's a complicated thing. Now, I just said something there, and this was part of what I also wanted to really unpack in this conversation. All right, and that's the issue of calories. Right, I'm a fitness coach, so it's my job to deal with calories. And one thing that honestly bothers the fuck out of me at the moment is this trend of people who are coming online and the core of their messages is something that's actually inherently good, which is to say that you should eat more whole foods and you should watch what you're eating and try and have these kind of ingredients. But then on the other hand, the same people are coming out saying, calories in, calories out is bullshit. And again, I understand where their argument is coming from, but that advice is not only extremely useless to someone who's, say, in a position of needing to lose weight, but is also extremely detrimental to their progress. Okay? It would be like this. It's like someone saying to you that, you're trying to save money. Well, you can do that. Or let's say you can get rich, but saving money is just for idiots. You just need to know how to earn money better or something like that. And that just doesn't work, okay? I don't know if this is a very good example, but I always like to equate earnings and savings to fitness progress, especially when it comes to diet, because you're dealing a lot with numbers, okay? And that's something that I deal with a lot. And I'll make the example of myself. When I started wanting to lose weight, if I was one of those fucking people who just got on intermittent fasting without knowing how the fuck calories work, how to have enough protein, I wouldn't have made any progress, or at the very least, my progress would not have been long-term. Okay. Now, at this moment in time, I'm in the best shape of my life, but that's because I do actually count my calories. I keep a very close eye on how much proteins I have every single day. And this has been the case for the better part of the last 3 or 4 years now, actually. And it's changed a lot of things around. And honestly, my results and what I started getting from my experiences, it really, really skyrocketed from the moment I actually started tracking what the fuck I was eating and if I was getting enough protein or not. Because otherwise you're just shooting blanks, okay? So I think that advice, especially people like... what's his name? Eddie Abiu, people like that. Like, I get it. It's a good core message, but to say to someone who is clearly in need of a serious diet and a regimen that, oh, as long as you eat these healthy items, you'll be fine. I think it's a terrible fucking advice, because that person needs a specific regimen just to help him get rid of that weight first. And of course, then comes the prioritization of better quality of food, but to say that calories in, calories out is complete bullshit, how the fuck do you then justify the thousands and thousands of different bodybuilders who've come and gone? And listen, I'm not talking about just people who are on gear, but even natural bodybuilders who've been able to build their physique purely just because they had their nutrition perfectly dialed in. How do you explain that then? You know, and I think that it's an area where nuance is required. And on the other hand, of course, I also have a big problem with fitness coaches out there that will come and encourage their clients to just have some cheap, shitty, I don't know, protein yogurt with tons of sweeteners and crap in it, you know, and saying, oh, as long as you hit your macros and calories, then that's fine. I think, again, that's wrong as well, because there's a lot of food that can have tremendously negative impact on us, on our health, in accumulative consumption of it. And I think that that's, again, another area, you know, where I see a very clear divide between these two teams. And the truth of it, quite frankly, is right in the middle. Is that, yes, you should track your calories, especially if you have specific goals. You should make sure that you get exactly the right number of protein that you should be having. But more importantly, just try and prioritize the quality of the food that you're having. I don't think that's so fucking difficult, is it? But again, it's something that's somehow politicized. You got the biohacker community that sometimes have good advice, but also half of them look like shit. On the other hand, you've got the other community that says, oh, trust the science, whatever this data says is correct, only pay attention to your macros. And again, they're missing a lot of the point as well, you know, and a lot of them are having health problems. So again, I just want to introduce this middle ground to you all and say, hey, listen, this is where the good stuff is at. You can learn from both sides. Just don't become dogmatic when it comes to food. What a strange fucking thing to become dogmatic about. Am I right? It doesn't make sense. But anyway, this was something that I really wanted to bring to your attentions, really. So now, of course, a lot of people will be listening to this and thinking, all right, then, Cheyenne, well, what do you actually suggest us to do? What should we do, first of all? And I think that what's most important here, yes, perhaps there's a process of elimination which will be helpful to some, okay? And I don't want people to become radicalized about food, but I would be much more content knowing that at least we are making informed decisions about what we eat, and we actually pay attention to the labels, we pay attention to the ingredients. People have worked hard for that to even be a thing, for you and I to have access to that information rather than just buying something, having blind faith and then just consuming it. Okay? I think, and I could be wrong about this, but the most number one dietary failure in our world and society is the lack of consumption of protein. Okay? Now, protein isn't just about building muscle and getting bigger. It really is not. Okay? Protein is also about just maintaining the muscle that you have. It supports your organs. And talking about the muscle that you have, a lot of people think of resistance training as, I'm doing that just to get big muscles to take a cool gym selfie or whatever, And whilst that may be true, that's actually a very small percentage of why you need muscles, why you need to lift weight, and why you need adequate protein to be able to rebuild and grow stronger muscles. And part of that is because this is something that as your age goes on, it will become more and more difficult to actually build new muscle because it's something that atrophies and slowly withers away. The more that happens, the more likely you are to get hurt and become frail as you get older. Okay? So there's no better protective tissue than your muscle tissue when you start to age, when you start to get older. So you can look at this as your physical pension, if you will. The more you lift weights now, the more you build a stronger muscular skeleton structure, the better your chances will be when you are older. Now, I'm sure there's quite a few of you who will probably be thinking now, oh, who gives a fuck how I am when I'm older? Oh, I don't care. I might not be around by that point anyway. No, listen. You do want to give a fuck about that because it's only when you get to that point that you realize, oh shit, I should have done something about this when I was younger. And by that point, it's going to be too late for you to do that. And you don't want to have that regret in your life. So I hope that, as harsh as this may seem right now, this at least encourages you to make the right decisions for yourself and for your own well-being going forward. And by the way, it's not just you. You can't be selfish. You also have to be in your very best physical shape for the people around you as well, especially those of you who have kids. One thing that honestly drives me up the fucking wall is when I hear parents saying that, oh, I don't want to go to the gym, I don't want to eat like this because of my kids, I don't have time. Fuck you. You've got time to go to work. You've got time to have a savings account and send your kids to school or whatever. And you don't have time to prepare yourself so you can be there for them, so you can protect them, so that they don't have to look after your broken ass when you're just 10 years older than you are now. And again, I don't mean to sound harsh, but this is the reality of it. You should look after yourself because it's your responsibility to do so, not for you, but for the people around you. And everyone should uphold this standard. And of course, this goes a little bit into the topic of fitness and things like that in general, but I think it's a relevant one for it to have come up at this point because I have also noticed something that I think is really strange, is that people seem to be lost between the idea of either having unattainable goals or following fitness influencers on Instagram who are taking tons of gear in their ass every week and have obviously tremendous physiques, but also not physiques that are naturally attainable. And certainly, even with gear, some of them possess great genetics. Okay, that's not something you can just mimic, I'm afraid. And people seem to be, men especially, seem to be lost in this sort of vortex of having those unattainable goals, but also saying, oh, I need to learn to be comfortable with myself. Therefore, I'm not going to fucking do anything about it. I do not understand this. This is totally the wrong way of going about it. Now, listen, of course, maybe some of those physiques are not necessarily attainable for you, but that doesn't mean that you should then just become complacent. When I think about how I used to be when I was overweight, honestly, if I were to if I had thought like that, if I thought to myself, you know what, I just need to learn to be comfortable with myself, I would be extremely fucking miserable right now. Because I can tell you from my own experience how much my own life, my own personality, my relationships, and how much my professional life, everything has changed just since I decided to actually make changes, and I stuck to it and I applied it to it on a daily basis over a long period of time. Now, yes, you can be comfortable with yourself. You can be comfortable with who you are and where you come from. But goddamn, don't just fucking sit there and not do anything about it. You should still strive to be the best version of yourself. And your best version of yourself physically might not look like Arnold Schwarzenegger in 1976. But that doesn't mean that you just stop trying. That's not the way to go about life, period. So don't ever be content, okay? This is one of the best advices I ever got in my life from someone who I respect more than anyone else. And it rings true to all areas, but especially in this case, I think. All right? So, and I think that's where a lot of the issues come from. You know, in society, I think I heard Dr. Gabrielle Lyons say this, and she was saying that society doesn't have a problem with people being overweight as much as it has a problem with people being under muscles. And you know what? I 100% agree with this. Now, I can see, again, this is a message that can get taken out of fucking context very easily, but it is true. Most people are heavily under muscled. And as I said, you need that in order to... It's the best anti-aging thing you can do. There is no better anti-aging drug in this world than resistance training. Okay? And when you do resistance training, you need the proper nutrition in order to be able to recover and develop better muscles. Coming back to the topic of actually what we eat, how it affects us, one thing that's also really, really worth mentioning is tap water. Okay? Tap water, now this is something that differs in different parts of the world, and there's actually a website that you can go and check out the local levels of the chemicals in your water. I can include this in the description for this episode if people want to check that out. But that's something that I don't think is talked about often. The amount of different chemicals, and particularly amongst those chemicals being lead and fluoride that are in tap water, quite commonly is pretty disastrous. And it's actually terrifying how it can impact us, okay? Fluoride, for example, is a neurotoxin. And it's in all of our toothpastes, by the way. Not all, of course, unless you have fluoride-free toothpaste like I do. And yeah, any of these like Listerines and mouthwashes and things like that, that's fucking terrible for you. Fluoride is actually associated with risks of reduction of IQ, right? And not only that, it can actually have negative impacts on babies that are in development. You know, so you can basically pass down learning disabilities to a baby that will be born someday just because of the mother consuming fluoride and being exposed to it. It's really terrifying, actually. But that's something that I found quite eye-opening in the more recent years. You know, for me, it started because I was having some stomach problems and I was drinking tap water all the time. And then what happened was that I eliminated that. And after like 3 weeks or a month, all of my stomach pain went away, and then it never came back again, by the way. And then from there, I decided to kind of just research this on my own terms, just read about it. You know, I mean, research is a tricky term to use online. I appreciate that, but just read about it and understand what's actually in the fucking tap water. And, you know, just to give you a bit of perspective, this is very interesting when you think about it. I don't know if many of you knew this, but London has the highest levels of cocaine in its tap water than anywhere else in Europe, at least. And that says a lot, because obviously the water that you're consuming, that's, it's a filtration system. So basically, it's the, how do I say this without absolutely making everyone feel disgusted? It's basically the filtered piss of the society there, and the different communities, and that of course all goes through one giant filtration system, which by the way is actually an impressive system, that we have, but also it's not so good if you choose to drink it again, because not only it contains traces of cocaine. If you want to apply this to a worldwide setting, a lot of water, especially nowadays, actually has traces of birth control pills in there, right? And that's something that can negatively impact your hormones, regardless of whether you're male or female. And thus, that whole crazy meme theory, do you guys remember the whole meme about the waters turning the frogs gay? That's actually true. And yeah, that's why I think that tap water is another one that's important to try and reduce. Again, I'm not here to, I'm not here to dictate anything. I'm just sharing the information on what I've learned, and hopefully some of that is useful to you guys. But yeah, that's a very dangerous thing that not enough people talk about. And I think it's because if you talked about it, the whole system would have to be redone, and it would cause a lot of problems for people who have to organize these things. But yeah, thankfully where I live, the tap water here doesn't have any fluoride in it. However, I'm still not going to fucking drink from it, and this is to not think about all of the fucking pipes that water travels through. I want you guys to do a quick fucking Google search as to what tap water pipes actually look like on the inside, and tell me you don't feel fucking disgusted that the water that you drink and shower in goes through that. Okay? Again, I'm not trying to turn you all into fucking hypochondriacs. I'm just raising awareness more than anything here. Okay? Speaking about things such as fluoride that happen to be in every single thing ever, I want to play a really interesting game with you all. And maybe some of you are in on this already, but maybe some of you aren't. I think most people aren't, sadly enough. But let's try this. Next time you go to a supermarket, look at the packaging of the food, whatever it is you want to buy. Look at the ingredients and see if you see any of the following: rapeseed oil, canola oil, sunflower oil, soybean oil, palm oil, and grapeseed oil, and there's various other ones, but those are kind of the main ones. I think canola and rapeseed, which I think they're of the same thing anyway, technically, it's just different names for it. It's the most common, and thus is actually one of the most toxic ingredients out of all of those that I just mentioned. Palm oil certainly is a very compromised one, just purely because of its environmental impacts. You can look this up. But rapeseed oil is not really food. In fact, it's an engine lubricant, which has gone through a very intensive, high temperature process, and it's also gone through a process of deodorization, because those oils are fucking rancid, and that can cause a variety of health complications. Again, here's the game: go to a supermarket, find whatever, find a meal deal, find bread, find chocolate, find any frozen food. Look on the list of labels. Do you see rapeseed oil? They got you. And what they're doing is that, obviously, other than the fact that they're quite high in omega-6 fatty acids, which can actually cause insulin resistance, that can lead to diabetes, what they're doing is that they're giving you inflammation. And what's happening is because so much of our food is contaminated with rapeseed oil, a lot of people are in a state of chronic inflammation. Now, what inflammation is, basically, it's when your body's immune system is becoming overactive and overreactive, rather. And it's not a good state for us to be in, especially on a continuous basis. Now, for example, there are good cases of inflammation. When you go to the gym and you do some resistance training, you actually get a lot of inflammation in your muscles, okay? And you actually kind of want to keep that. That's why they say not to have cold exposure right after a workout, because again, cold exposure, amongst its benefits, is reduction of inflammation. High doses of vitamin C is reduction of inflammation. Green tea, turmeric, black pepper, and of course the combination of the two, which makes for increased release of curcumin. That's also something that aids a lot in reducing inflammation. But when everything that you eat, if you're not someone who makes their own food regularly and watches what kind of oil they buy and watches what kind of sauces and things they put in there, if you're not that person, you should be very careful, because there's a possibility that a lot of the ready-made foods that you're buying, if not every single one of them, has traces of these goddamn pesky fucking seed oils in them. Now, this is something that I would like for you all to do your own research on. My experience of it is that I discovered what seed oils were. I discovered what they did to the human body. I discovered through sheer terror of my own experience that they're in every fucking thing that you can buy. And through reducing it, I noticed a variety of different improvements in my own physiology. Part of that was improvement in skin. Part of that was actually improvement in mood. And why would it improve your mood? It's because 90% of your serotonin is created in the gut. So if you're having food that's inflammatory to your gut, that can directly have a negative impact on your mental health. So basically, the food that they're fucking giving you, everything you can buy from a supermarket, that's pretty much giving you depression. I don't know how much more directly I can say that. That's basically what's happening. You can check this out, and it's really wild, and it's actually quite scary. You know, like for example, I think in meal deals, what's happening is that it's in all of the mayonnaise. But I think that they also fry some parts of it, and when they do that in rapeseed oil. But yeah, anything like mayonnaise, it's absolutely fucking doused in it. Anything such as crisps, that's basically mayonnaise. Crisps are fucking horrible, by the way, just because it's fat and carbs, no protein, and it's like potatoes are absolutely fine as they are. I think so anyway. They're absolutely fine. You can eat them, but how you cook them is very important. And to absolutely fucking deep fry the shit out of them in something that's already gone through extreme high temperatures just to be the thing that it is, and by that I mean seed oils. You can only imagine how disastrous it is to cook things in that motherfucker. All right. There's actually a study that showed that fries, that's right, French fries are worse for you in terms of the impact that they have. They're worse than a packet of cigarettes. Think about that. All right. A portion of fries worse than a packet of cigarettes for your health. Okay. And again, a lot of this comes down to just how they are made and what they are made in. Okay. So this seed oil thing, again, for some reason, this is now the third time I'm mentioning this debacle, but it's something that became politicized. It wasn't at first. It was very strange. Like you could now, I'm happy that I get the opportunity to talk about this here. But initially, let's say I think in 2021, when I was first reading about this, if you Googled about rapeseed oil and about different seed oils, you would get a very honest response as to why they're not good for humans. It was actually very expansive, the results that you would get. If you use Google to do the same thing now, if you search for the same thing, the results are a lot more compromised. Meaning that they actually say, oh, well, actually, omega-6 fatty acids are good for you. These are heart-healthy oils. And these are all the same compromised articles and journals, from the same sources that also lied to us about a lot of things, particularly in the last 3 years, which we now know to be true, that they never apologized, by the way. What was very, very strange and surreal is, and this was the aha moment for me where I knew that seed oils were a fucking problem, because I was kind of like, I know I've eliminated it and it's had these positive impacts for me, but I don't know if I don't know how serious or legitimate it is. You know what sold it to me? When fucking Rolling Stones, the magazine, which we know they're famous for their propaganda, and they've lied to us a whole bunch of times. They came out and said that seed oils was somehow the obsession of the far right. And I'm not a far right person. And I instantly, when I saw that, I was like, you're trying to alienate a genuine suspicion that people have. And that was kind of what really solidified it for me. And I was like, all right, okay. So there's a legitimate concern to be had here, because they're coming out and they're saying that, oh yeah, they're politicizing it, Food and diet should never be politicized for anyone. We should all be looking out for the well-being of each other and for the best health of each other. So when you get these corrupt magazines that are all paid by the millions by their donors, whose special interests they hold, you know that something's up. When that's basically their way of confirming it. Of course, a lot of people will see that and think, well, I'm not a far right person. Okay, I'm never going to be concerned about seed oils for the rest of my life. Okay, you see what's going on? This is how they plant those fucking seeds in your head. This is exactly how they do it. All right, and I bet that if people actually started questioning this a little bit more, and if they actually stood up against it, if everyone flat out refused to buy products with seed oils, I bet you there would be a lot of big fucking changes. It would be powerful. It would be very, very just beautiful. And the thing is, it's difficult to avoid it. Even myself, if I'm on the road, if I'm touring with my band, it's very, very difficult to avoid it unless I have all of my own food or if I'm fasting, So again, this is not some crazy conspiracy. You can all just next time go to a supermarket, give yourself, I don't know, extra 5 minutes, extra 10 minutes. If it's going to take you longer, give yourself 20 minutes to really sit in that fucked up realization that, holy shit, they've hijacked the fucking food that you eat so that they can make you sick, so that they can profit from your illness. How fucked up is that? It's actually genius, but we will not tolerate it. And that's why I'm here to share this information for you guys, okay? I want to wrap this episode up, but there's a few really small sort of important points that I want to kind of bring to you, just because I feel that I have talked a lot about what to avoid, what to not have, and instead I want to at least give you an idea of maybe what you can do. All right. And again, this is not the general advice that I would give to my clients. I'm not going to give you a meal plan. I'm not going to tell you how to do that. That's exclusively for them. But what I am going to do is give some general advice that can be helpful to anyone and everyone. Number 1, increase your protein intake. Try and get it from sources that are as natural as possible. If you're vegan or vegetarian, well, if you're vegan, the best sources you can probably get it from is pea protein. Your best bet is to get that from supplements. If you are a vegetarian, then of course you have the option of eggs and cheese and dairy. If you're having dairy, it's probably better for you if you have it raw, because the dairy that you can get from a supermarket is, again, it's highly compromised. Unfortunately, it's because when milk is boiled and pasteurized at extreme high temperatures, and of course when it's homogenized as well, the homogenized part of it really is fucking unnecessary. That's only there to stop it from clotting, which is fine to have in real milk. On the other side of it, the pasteurization, what's happening there is that's destroying all of the good bacteria that's in the milk that would be necessary for your body to recognize it and actually be able to break down the enzymes. So a lot of times when people say they're lactose intolerant, they're not lactose intolerant. It's just the fact that their body's unable to break down the bullshit fucking milk that they bought from the supermarket. If you can have it raw, get it raw. And yeah, so with that said, try and increase protein intake. Of course, with people who have no problem with consuming animal products, then if you want lean protein, your best bet is just chicken breast, steak, lean mince. If you can get, say, the 5% ones, they are okay, but again, they're factory farmed. They're not the best. If you can get it grass-fed, grass-finished, that's probably better for you. And the other thing would be, pay attention to what you eat first thing in the morning. One of the worst fucking things people have in the morning is a cereal. Cereals are full of seed oils, they're full of sugars, they're full of garbage, they're full of crap. It's basically fried garbage that people feed their kids every morning. And that has a negative impact, not only on their development, but also on their mood and their mental health. There's a reason why when you wake up in the morning and you have fucking pancakes or cereal or just a slice of toast, 2 hours later when that coffee's worn out, you feel exhausted. You feel fucking devastated just from how tired you are. That's because you get a spike of insulin and then that starts to crash down and then you get hungry again. This is how they keep you fucking consuming, by the way. So keep that in mind. So cereals for breakfast, bullshit. Get rid of them completely. Burn the fucking cardboards. The other thing, try and buy organic if you can. Try and support local farmers, especially. Farmers need as much support as they can get right now, regardless of whether you're vegan, vegetarian, meat eater, carnivore, or whatever. Try and source what you get locally. It makes a difference, okay, and gives a little bit less power to these corporate overlords that are trying to purposely keep us sick and destroy our environment at their own profit, okay? It's not just the environment they're destroying us, okay? And we need to stop letting them fucking do that. What we can do is instead rely on each other for our nutrition, for what we eat. Remember back in the day, especially when in Britain, they used to have the milk delivered to your place, and that was actual proper milk. Remember how good that was? See, you look back at how healthier people were back then. You look at a picture of anywhere here in public in the 70s, how much better people looked, how healthier culture was. I know people here who lived up to their 90s eating bacon and lettuce every morning. And that's because the bacon that they grew up on wasn't filled with fucking toxins and bullshit. It might not have been halal, but that's a different story. And, and yeah, the other thing is, just more protein, have protein. And obviously count what you're having. If you're not sure what to do about your nutrition, hire a nutritionist, or I would say maybe more importantly, just get a coach that can give you advice on both of those things. So at least you're training, you're doing your resistance training, and you're having some idea what to eat. But be careful that the coach that you hire is not one of those people that just says, oh, eat 10 protein bars a day and you'll be fine. That's bullshit as well. So do your own due diligence. And you can certainly, I would in fact encourage you and welcome you to do your own due diligence on this particular episode that I've shared here with you all. I understand that there may be some things that I've said that could be wrong, or maybe there's a different approach, maybe there's a different answer. Please, by all means, the comment section's open and my inbox is open if you don't feel comfortable commenting in public, because, at the end of the day, I am here to learn. So I'm only sharing what I have learned through experience, through my own research, through my own due diligence, and through basically just going on my own journey of self-improvement, and these are the things that I've learned and found. And I really, really hope it's important to lay this out there, that I'm not trying to make people hypochondriacs about food. I'm not trying to make people think that, oh, all food is evil, I'll never want to touch that again. I think that the best way to do this is whatever choices that we make are informed choices. And at least we have the option to assess things in our head. And at least we know why we make certain choices. Okay? And quickly to wrap this up, because I did this on the sober, on the episode on sobriety, and people seem to pay particular attention to that. So I want to kind of bring this back in here again, just for a very short moment as I wrap this up. I believe that within at least a spiritual context, our gut microbiome has the responsibility of connecting us to certain divine sources, if not the divine sources. Why? Because it connects us in a way that's beyond just our bones and muscles and flesh and skin. It's more than that. We are made of billions of different organisms, and these all work in harmony with each other. And the food that we eat has a tremendous impact on them. So I think it's necessary that if one wants to excel on a spiritual level, first of all, you must be most in tune with your own higher self. And to do this, a process of purification is necessary, even if that's only temporarily. I think that can take us to much more interesting places. So that is the piece that I'm going to leave with you, those of you listening to the podcast, and I would love for you to do with it as you wish. Okay? Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so fucking much for tuning in to this episode of the podcast. I hope that at least some of my ramblings have been of value to you. As you can see, I'm honest here, my heart on my sleeve. I'm just sharing what I know. I hope it will be helpful. And yeah, I'll see you all in the next episode. Take care.